It is late October and winter is rapidly approaching. We're already getting freezing temperatures here in Saskatchewan and Canada, so that means it's time for another Tesla efficiency test. Right here on my Tesla screen, you can see in Warman, the city that I live in, it is currently -2 degrees Celsius, so that is right around 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And throughout the day, it is going to get to about 8 degrees Celsius, which I will put the Fahrenheit up on screen there. And so it'll be really interesting to see how efficient the car does here in a morning where it starts at -2. Here on the sexy knob from Enhance Auto, that is my battery temperature. So you can see my battery's still at 14 degrees Celsius, so no problem there. My battery shouldn't see any signs of having to precondition or preheat. Now, how I will conduct this test is I'm going to drive my regular round trip test to work, which is 67 kilometers round trip. That's 42 miles. And so the first leg of that trip is about 32 or 33 kilometers, and then I will park my car unplugged all day, starting in the negative temperatures and slowly getting above freezing throughout the day. And then of course, I'm going to drive home. I'm going to document the entire process of that, keep track of my efficiency there, keep track of my efficiency on the way back. And then of course, I'm going to compare it to my spreadsheet with all my other testing scenarios where I have some really extreme ones, stuff like -36 Celsius. Oh, it's pretty much like -30 something Fahrenheit as well. That gets deadly cold. I'll also compare it to situations where I parked my car outside all night in those -30 Celsius situations. So you guys can really see the differences here of how this thing does in the extreme cold, how it does in moderate cold, where days like today where it's it's a little bit brisk out. There's even frost on this guy's back windshield, as well as this car here too. You can really see things are starting to actually freeze up overnight. But also I'll compare it to how my car does in the middle of summer, where I was getting extremely efficient trips where my car only uses maybe 6 or 7% state of charge to get to work. My car is a 2024 Tesla Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive edition. And things get as bad as 13 or 14% usage each direction to go to work and back, depending on how bad it is and if you don't precondition, if you leave the car out all night. So there's a ton of variance possible here. And I think today it's going to be on the pretty close end of middle of summer, even though we're at freezing. I could be proven wrong. We'll see. So to me, it makes perfect sense to do a since charge test here since I'm not going to be plugging this thing in all day. This will give us our total kilometers traveled. I will convert everything to miles. This will give us our total kilowatt hours used. And I will tell you the entire cost and how to calculate that for yourself. And the watt hours per kilometer, we will keep track of that as well. Keep in mind the EPA estimated range is 137 watt hours per kilometer. I will also convert this all to watt hours per mile for you Americans. I think with all this being said, it is time to set off and begin the test. I've already found something pretty notable. I just set off. Here we are driving through the prairies. And the car thinks I will get to work at 62%. Now this is the first time I've seen a number this low. Since the summer began, I've been getting projections of 63 or 64 pretty much every single day, and I've been hitting those. So it seems the cold might actually be impacting this a little bit. Now I'm in full self-drive here. I did subscribe for a month of it to do a video where I drove to Winkler, Manitoba, where I partnered with Drive Protected to get my car PPF filmed. One more note for my testing here is I am leaving it at 20 Celsius with everything on auto. That is 68 Fahrenheit. I do this on all of my road trip tests. And already since charge, you can see we are pretty close to double the EPA rated range. So the start of a trip always is bad, but this is definitely no exception. I'm expecting this to level out once we get into Saskatoon, but yeah, on a 15-kilometer highway stretch coming up here, this is gonna get pretty bad. Winter's right around the corner, and we've already had our first big snowfall here in Saskatchewan. Most of it's melting now, so there's that wet, slushy mess everywhere. Exactly the kind of weather that puts floor mats to the test. I've been using these 3W floor mats in my 2024 Model 3 Highland for about 3 months now, through gravel, snow, and salt, and they've done an amazing job keeping my car's interior spotless. They're 3D scanned to fit this car perfectly. There's no sliding around, no gaps, and nowhere for water or salt to soak underneath. The raised edges wrap tight against the sides, trapping everything in place. Even when it's -30 outside and the cabin feels frozen solid, the mats stay flexible and grippy, exactly how they were designed. The precision is what really sets 3W apart. Every mat is laser scanned for your specific vehicle, and you can tell the difference instantly. The retention clips line up perfectly with the Tesla anchor points here, and the material itself feels premium. Thick, flexible, and built to last. Gives you that high-end OEM feel, but at a much better price. And that's where these mats really shine. They cost far less than Tesla's own OEM floor mats, but actually do cover more and use thicker, higher quality materials. When they get dirty, it's less than a 2-minute job to get them cleaned up. Just spray them down or wipe them with a damp towel and they will look pretty much brand new again. No scrubbing, no waiting, no hassles. They're durable, grippy, and clearly built for Canadian winters. If you want floor mats that actually hold up and don't cost the OEM prices, Check out 3W at the links in my description. My viewers can get up to 35% off with code FrozenTesla3W, and it's not just for Teslas. 3W also makes floor mats for tons of other EVs and plenty of other gas vehicles too. I set my FSD to hurry and a max of 114 kilometers an hour. That is 70 miles an hour. That's a super easy number for the Americans to convert. And as well as the rest of the world, we all know what 114 kilometers an hour is. Now that is barely speeding at all. It's pretty much going speed limit. And yeah, for consistency's sake on testing, it just makes a lot of sense to do that. I'm curious how FSD is going to handle this situation. So we got a car merging here and oh, well there you go. Right away it wanted to move into the left lane. So it made room for this guy to merge in. That's not too bad. Now it's worth noting at the time of recording, version 14 of full self-drive FSD is going out. I don't have it yet. I'm still on version 13.2.9. I find this version to be pretty excellent already. I pretty much never have to do any interventions. The only time I do is if it's going to take way longer or do something that I really just don't personally like doing. It never does anything dangerous where I have to take over because something critical is going to happen. Pretty much never I have to actually intervene for that. It's more just for inconvenience sake, or the car is going to make me look like I'm driving like an inexperienced teenage driver doing stuff that is a little bit questionable, technically not illegal, but like, why would you drive like that? That's how I would describe version 13 anyway. Probably good enough to get you there, but you might feel like a little bit of a knob doing it. And on the trip meter here, we are almost halfway there distance-wise, still projected to get there at 62% in around 19 minutes. And since charge, 12.3 kilometers, 2.5 kilowatt hours used, and 205 watt hours per kilometer. So yeah, very not efficient so far. The highway's never the most efficient in electric vehicles or Teslas, but yeah, you can see it is actually dropping that number slowly. And then once we turn into Saskatoon, I expect that number to drop even more. But yeah, nice straight highway here, all the way from my city to Saskatoon where I work. Funny enough, my battery has actually decreased by 2 degrees, down from 14 to 12. So that cold airflow under the car really has caught up with it, and it's actually cooling the battery while I'm putting it under load. That's an interesting point I wanted to mention. And now that I've been out of the garage long enough, you can see my car is reading correctly that it's 0 degrees Celsius. So exactly at the freezing point here now. I kind of find it wild how much battery the highway uses compared to city. So I'm currently already down to 65%. I started at 70% state of charge, and I'm still projected to get there at 62, but I am like barely halfway there. So I've used 5%. It thinks I'll only use 3% more for all that extra distance. So it just shows how much more the highway uses versus the city. Now we are at a red light here, just entering the city. So might as well do a mileage update after slowing down and getting all that regen braking. Things are looking pretty okay actually. So 174.5 watt hours per kilometer. We are well over halfway into our technical distance since I just did a bunch of highway. Projection still bang on by the car at 62%. So a total use of 8% if this remains correct. And of course, guys, that green bar on the side there, when I'm braking, that means it's regenerative braking. And if it's dark or black, that means it's using the actual brake pedal. We are getting full regen braking here into the drive. And of course, now that's the activity bar. So that's going up as I am accelerating, which shows how much charge I'm using. So if you really goose it, I'll floor it a little bit here. You can see that goes way up really fast. And when it goes back down, that means I'm braking. Now I'm in FSD, car's going 90K. It's happy to blast right into this construction zone, so I am taking over. That's another spot that FSD just seems to fail at. I would have gotten a humongous ticket going 35 kilometers over in a construction zone. And just like that, I've made it here to work, so let's see how the car did. So 32.2 kilometers traveled, 5.4 kilowatt hours used, and an average of 167 watt hours per kilometer. Honestly, didn't end up being too bad. Now it's still at -1 Celsius, so it's getting even cooler, and got here with 62%, exactly as the car estimated. Now, if I pull up the actual consumption graph, this is even more interesting. So we used exactly 7.8% on this drive. 0.2% more than trip projections. So the car is honestly extremely accurate. Says I arrived at 62.1%, so pretty much bang on exact. Driving stats, as you can see here, these are all pretty interesting. Climate, it says I used less than expected. No battery preconditioning was done. Everything else 0.5, and driving used a bit more than expected. And we have some range tips here too. So 5.4 kilometer per hour wind, costed a tiny bit, whatever it is what it is, there's headwind. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go work all day and I'm gonna have an 8-hour day. My car's gonna sit here completely untouched, completely unplugged. And when I'm ready to leave, I will go on the handy dandy Tesla app. I will turn on the climate and track how long it takes for that to heat up. And once it's heated up, I will jump in the car, see how much that used, and we'll be off. I'm gonna note, I do not use Sentry mode here. This parking lot is heavily camera covered, so I don't need to use Sentry mode here. So there will be no battery drain from Sentry mode. As far as I know, there should be no battery drain at all whatsoever while I'm parked here all day. So I'll see you guys in about 8 hours. Well, I've just opened the Tesla app for the first time today, and since it's sunny outside, funny enough, the car is actually warmer than normally. It's at 23°C instead of the 20 that I normally set it to. So yeah, the big glass roof and the glass on all the sides and everything creates a bit of a greenhouse, and the car is already warmed up. And just like that, it's just over 8 hours later, the day is over, and here is where the car is at. Obviously, there wasn't much to cool down since the car is such a greenhouse with all the glass that it let all the sunlight in from today. Lucky enough, it turned out to be a sunny day, and the car pretty much stayed a decent temperature even though it was chilly out. So kind of just as projected here in the morning, it's about 8 degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit up on screen. So definitely a bit of an easier drive home. I would fully expect to be beating these numbers that we got from this morning since it's warmer out, so why wouldn't it? But let's just see what it projects. So I am still at 62%, exactly what I parked with before. And the car thinks I will use about 7% here and get home with around 55% state of charge. So let's just see how accurate that remains. And I forgot to show this before, but yeah, my battery pretty much didn't change temperatures there. It's still at that 11 degrees. It was 12 before, pretty much the same. And current drive stats, we are doing exceptional. That is actually the EPA rated range there at about 136. So that is really exceptional. Overall trip since charge, it's brought it down to 162. So we're definitely doing better now. However, this has all been city driving, right? So I haven't actually done any highway yet. We're getting close to the highway, and that's when the numbers are going to get worse. And numbers stayed very much the same here. I'm at the end of my portion of the city drive. Projected still to get home with 55% in about 16 minutes. And I'm pretty close to exactly halfway done distance-wise, as you can see on the activity bar there. Yeah, we'll see what changes on the highway here. I suspect this is going to go way up. But yeah, I'll be really surprised if I do worse than what I did in the morning. And so I think that'll really show that a cool battery in the morning, when it's right at the exact freezing point, is less efficient than when the weather's not even that much warmer, up to 8 degrees Celsius here. It's not that much warmer, but it's making quite a difference, or at least we think it is. Maybe after I do my highway portion, it's all going to end up the same anyway, right at that 174 watt hours per kilometer mark. But we'll find out soon enough. Pretty much at the end of the highway zone here, this is where we're currently at. Yeah, it's definitely gone up here on the highway, but really not too bad to be sitting at 152, and I'm about to get a big slowdown off the highway here. Projection's still bang on at 55%, so yeah, this is looking mighty accurate. And yeah, as we slow down off the highway here, you can see that green bar going up. That's my regen bar. That's just slowing down to the 80 zone that we're in now. And already below 150 watt hours per kilometer. So pretty quickly, this goes back up as you start slowing down to turn off the highway. And so the last part of this video will be when I get home to see the final stats, the final drive stats, to see exactly what happened here and a final review. And to me so far, it seems pretty obvious that owning, driving, plugging in, charging, daily driving to work a Tesla in a climate where you get to around 0 degrees, where you get to that exact freezing point, that 32 Fahrenheit, no problem at all, especially if you have a home charger. I do have a 240 volt charger, but it only goes at 24 amps. So that's quite a bit lower of a charging speed. I only get about 5.7 kilowatt. Now that's a lot more than the basic slow charger of the 110 volt where I get 1.4 kilowatt, but a lot less than the full 48 volts that you can get from the Tesla home charger, which is over 11 kilowatt. Even if you can get a very basic entry level 2 charger at home, I'll show you what kind of speeds you're going to get, and when I plug it in, it'll say how long it'll take for me to get back to my starting charge as of this morning. And folks, I predict it's not going to be too bad. And there we go, made it home. So let's look at the final stats. Well, the Tesla is 2 for 2 today, so it nailed the projection. I used a total of 15% here today. I thought I would get home with 55, and sure enough, I did. And wow, current drive. So I am actually really shocked and impressed to see that. I pretty much never get that. I think it's just because I had it in FSD and I wasn't speeding like I normally do and wasn't driving quite as spirited as I normally do. Since in FSD, it doesn't accelerate like I do. It doesn't pass people like I do. It's kind of hard to hold back sometimes. So I think that played a role in there. And then, of course, the since charge number. We brought that way down here from this morning. So 153.4 watt hours per kilometer. Conversion to watt hours per mile is up on screen. And a total of 10.2 kilowatt hours used. So that is a pretty simple calculation. All right, so here's my spreadsheet that I use to keep track of all of my drives on this exact same route with all the conditions noted. So whether it's ultra cold, whether I plugged it in the garage or outside, what I did at work, was it plugged in, etc. And at the very bottom is the test from today, so highlighted in green. You can see I actually set a new record on my round trip test right at the freezing point. I even did 1% better than an identical situation on a plus 30 Celsius day. So on a nice, really hot day, I did better than that. And then of course, I absolutely crushed the really cold winter dates. When you see the minus 30°C test, that's an exact same situation as this one. We're at the very top there. So parked in the garage on level 2, unplugged at work, 31% used. So double the usage, and I did exactly the same thing as what I did here on this test here today. So you can see there is a massive difference when it's minus 30 Celsius versus 0 degrees Celsius, right at that exact freezing point. Pretty cool info. For me, living in Saskatchewan, we have a very simple power rate of 14.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Plus I have to spend an extra couple cents on tax. So it works out to pretty much 16 cents per kilowatt hour. So 10 kilowatt hours times 16 cents, $1.60. If I do 10.2, let's call it $1.65 in Canadian dollars. So in American, that's roughly $1.20 or so, maybe a little bit less. That's all it costed me to drive 67 kilometers or 42 miles, you guys. For some context, the previous car that I was driving, it was a 2010 Honda Civic. That car averaged about 7.75 liters per 100 kilometers, somewhere around 30 mpg. And that car costed me $8 a day to drive to work and back. That was based on gas prices being about $1.50. Now they're a little lower. They're down to around $1.20. So if we take that down by about 15 or 20%, that's still about $6.50 at these lower gas prices, but that's still quadruple, maybe even more than what I'm paying right now for my Tesla to drive to work and back. And then of course you can build that out over weeks and months and years, and you save quite a lot of money if you put on a lot of miles on your Tesla or your EV in general, especially if it's anywhere near as efficient as Tesla Model 3s are. Now, as you probably saw in my recordings before, I have 26,000 kilometers on this car. It's pretty much, what, 18,000 miles or so if I had to guess? That is a ton of room for a ton of savings to be had for the entire time I've owned the car. And I've not even had the car for a year. I've had it for pretty much exactly 10 months now, and I've done almost 30,000 kilometers or 18,000 miles. And so I'm saving a lot. I'm gonna do a 1-year roundup, of course, when I'm at the 1-year mark to see how much I've actually saved and show you guys how much I've spent. Has there been any service and all those kind of things? So I'm going to get into a lot of detail at the 1-year mark, but this video really was to test how good a Tesla or EV in general works in, freezing, literal freezing weather. And my review is freaking excellent. This is better than I was getting in the summer, quite literally, because the AC didn't have to run. The heat was running, but not really much because sunny at 0 degrees, not that bad and not that rough on the car. It's not too tough on the car. And on that afternoon leg, I'll show you guys the drive stats here. So 6.5% consumed. That is pretty minimal for the distance I drove. And if we look at this, yeah, I pretty much broke even on all these. And of course, it still thought I was speeding because I guess I was going 114, but normally I'm going a little faster than that. But yeah, arrived with 55.2. And there you guys can see getting exactly 6 kilowatt. It just rounds up. It's actually 5.7. 2 hours and 10 minutes remaining to my charge limit of 70, which is what I started with today. And yeah, you can see right at 55%. So that's all it takes to get all of your fuel back at the end of the day. Pretty achievable overnight, I'd say. So if you're curious how a Tesla works in weather right around freezing, works great, folks. Can't recommend it enough. And if you want to get a Tesla yourself, follow my referral link in the description. You can see what kind of offer or discount they have right now. Sometimes it's $1,000. Sometimes it's free full self-drive for a few months. Sometimes it's free supercharging. You really never know what it is, but follow the link and do some online shopping and see what works for you. I fully stand by Teslas. If my car got destroyed right now and I had to replace it, I would hands down get a new Tesla. I might get a Model Y now that the Juniper is out. And the Juniper was not even announced when I bought this car. I really do like my 3, but the Juniper would be a fun change and a fun change for videos. So that might be where I'd go. But that is all to say, I would for sure get another Tesla if I had to replace this car. So thanks again to 3W Floor Mats for sponsoring this video. I've loved the few months I've had my 3W Floor Mats, so I'm really happy to have them as a sponsor on the video once again. For what you get for the low price you pay, I love these things. Make sure you use my referral link and referral code if you're looking for some floor mats for your Tesla or any other EV, and also just tons of cars in general. They don't just sell them for EVs, so check them out too. Thanks for checking out another Frozen Tesla video. Winter is coming quick. I can't wait to get into it and freeze the absolute daylights out of this car. I'll see you guys on the next one.